She is on step 2. So everyone, please give Laura a warm welcome.
Okay.
All righty. Hey there. Okay, here we go. I am again grateful to be here. I'm Laura. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is February 2013, and I sponsor women, and I have a sponsor, and some of my sponsees sponsor people. So I'm happy to be in the middle of the program, and I'm grateful to be here today, sharing my experience, strength, and hope. I would like to be able to start today with a prayer again. It'll settle my nerves a little bit, and hopefully it'll get us all together with the same heart. God, today, help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, everything I think I know about my own recovery, so that I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Amen. So let's start with a recap of step 1, where we were yesterday. For some of y'all that were not here last week, we'll kind of get on a level playing field. So step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. For those of you that were here, I think we covered that pretty well. My life was pretty unmanageable, and I was pretty much powerless over alcohol. But I came from a pretty traumatic alcoholic family. I was shifted around quite a bit. I had a blended family. We had a yours, mine, and ours family, and it was violent, and it was just traumatic. We looked good from the outside, but on the inside, there was a lot of alcohol, there was a lot of physical abuse, there was a lot of verbal abuse, there was a lot of mental torture. And so I did not come out of that unscathed. But during all of that, I did have a spiritual foundation where God did touch me. And I did come out of that with a spiritual foundation that has carried me through my life. And I am forever grateful for that. And I do feel that has a big reason why I'm standing up here today. And I will talk a little bit about that. But I have moments in my life, I call them moments of grace. And so I had those that got me through my childhood and got me through to the doors of AA. I had one of those, I was very successful early in my 20s. I started a technology company, and I took that relationship with God that I had, I took it for granted, and it occluded money, success, and power. Basically occluded that relationship that I had, and I just erased that relationship with God, and I became, I drank, and I had a lot of success, and money basically became my gods. And I did not notice that relationship had disappeared, but it did, and it changed my values, and it changed what I found that were important, and it changed the way I valued other people, and it changed the way I looked at other people. And that changes the trajectory of your life when that happens. And I didn't see it happening, I didn't know it was happening, but it happened. And I continued on the outside to be very successful. And I was grateful for that, right? Because it felt good, it looked good, right? And on the outside, I had the nice house, I had a nice car. I eventually married a handsome man. And hi, Frank. He's watching on Zoom. I had a beautiful daughter, and we had a pretty family, and I continued to get promoted at work and transferred across the country, and so good things were happening. I did binge drink a lot, and I drank with my customers, and a lot of drinking was done on an expense account, and sometimes that expense account wasn't the most honest. Sometimes there were 4 people at dinner, I needed to cover up why there was, $1,000 worth of booze, a lot of, and, a lot of expensive, 6 bottles of wine, when it was kind of normal to have 4. And so, and there was always a story, I would go on business trips and, to every client, and there was somebody, Laura was out with somebody until 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was legend, that Laura has these drinking stories, woohoo! And, but it was fun, but it was also hard. I was a hard drinker, and that was just kind of how I was known. I was fun to party with, and I always had the expense account. And so, but I always got my business done too. I was very successful at what I did. So at about 50, I had a hangover at home, and this is a God moment, and I woke up and I got a nudge, and it said, "You're drinking yourself to death, and you're not going to make it to 55." And so I was like, ooh, I wanted to see my daughter graduate. I wanted to be a grandmother. I wanted all of those things. So I, in earnest, started to stop trying to drink. And I was drunk by 4 o'clock that day. So that's how well that worked out. And so for 3 years, I tried to do everything I could to quit drinking. I started to drink only wine. I drank booze only because I could mix it with stuff. I drank only on the weekends. I drank only with customers. I drank only on Thursdays. I drank red wine. I drank only with this customer. I tried all of these things, and it just did not work, and, I'll be home by 4. I was home by 4 o'clock in the morning. So I was true. So it was all these things. And so, 3 years later, I am demoralized, and I am ashamed of myself, and I am got this emotion. On the outside, I still look okay, and on the inside, I am just shredded. I have my esteem is about this big. I know I can't honor my word. I'm starting to not be able to keep meetings with my clients because I feel so bad. And my calendar's starting to be like from 1 to 3. I'm open. I block the other times because I feel so bad. And when you really can't book $64 million worth of business from 1 to 3, you just can't get that done. And I'm knowing that, so internally I know things are about to hit the fan, and I'm not going to, and I'm the breadwinner of the family, so I know internally this is not sustainable. And so I am knowing the cards are about to come down, but I haven't had the DUI. I don't look like the messy lady with the lipstick all over at the bars, wigs twirled, I don't look like that. And, my pantyhose are never run because I don't wear pantyhose. And, it's Florida. But I knew that was coming. And so so about at 53, I had a business event that I knew that caused it was just too much for me, and I started drinking at a problem, and I got really, really messy, and I called my husband for some solace. I was out at our beach house because I was expecting some customers to come, and they canceled the meeting because there was a business problem, and I started just drinking at the problem, and it got very messy. My husband called and said, "You have a problem. You've really pushed it over the line. You need to do something about your drinking." And that scared me even more. And so my brother was sober, and so I called him and I said, "I think I'm afraid. I think I have a problem." So I went to an AA meeting the next day, and I heard what I needed. So I had, my life I was powerless. It was unmanageable, and I got to my first AA meeting, and I heard hope. And so I came home that day, and I was given simple instructions. Don't drink until a meeting tomorrow. Call us. I got a couple of numbers. Call us. And then they loaded an app on my phone, and it had the big book, and it had the doctor's opinion, and it had Bill's story on it. I read the doctor's opinion, and this is where we're kind of getting to step 2, right? Because it's, can you believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And I had come back to a beach house that was fully loaded with booze because I was planning on entertaining there for the weekend. We were going to do the Daytona 500. So I was coming back to a beach house by myself, fully loaded with booze, and I had a hang-up. And I did not want to drink. And I had heard something at the AA meeting that was powerful enough, and I had simple enough instructions to not drink and get to a meeting, and I wanted to get to that meeting. That was enough of incentive for me, and I was given instructions to read these 2 chapters of this book. So I get my phone, and I had these ladies' numbers, and so at this point, those instructions and the hope I had was power greater than myself to keep me away from that booze in that house. That was all I needed. It didn't have to be God. It didn't have to be church. It was those instructions, and the power of that room and that meeting was enough. It was all I needed to keep me away from that house full of booze. And so I started to read the doctor's opinion. So in that, I find out that it is an allergy. I am constructed differently from the people that can drink with impunity. And I find out that my daughter has a peanut allergy. And when she eats peanuts, she pukes 17 feet. I mean, it's immediate. And so we do everything we can to keep peanuts away from her because she has ruined a car, a brand new car, 17 hours old, because we thought it was a mint and an M, and it was not. It was a peanut allergen peanut. So we have suffered the consequences of that. And now as she's gotten older, she goes into anaphylactic shock, and recently has had to have the fire department come. So we keep peanuts away from our girl. So I got the allergy thing, and I had seen my dad struggle with alcohol, and he always felt like he was deprived. He always wanted that, and he always wanted that, and I don't think he ever got the fact that it was an allergy, and he just couldn't have it in his body. He was gone before I could talk to him about it, but I don't think he ever got the fact that he was physically different from other people and just couldn't have it in his body. But so once I got that, my paradigm shifted. You know, in the book it talks about tectonic plates and things have to shift, and really, so I shifted at that moment. It was like, I just can't have booze in my system, and once it gets out of my system, I'm not going to have the craving anymore. And so that was really where I got in what I got in the doctor's opinion. And then they talk about I need to have moral psychology. I need to have some sort of spiritual experience. And so I didn't really know what that was going to be because I had this occluded God, you know, and I was embarrassed to turn on the radio station, the Christian radio station, because I really had kind of screwed the pooch, you know, as far as God was. I was so far removed. And I just was like, so I kind of just put that aside, you know, and just said, I'll have to figure that out later. I'll have to find a church. I'll have to find something out. I'll just have to figure that out later. And so I knew that I was going to have to do something quick, though, because I was going on a 6-week business trip, and I had gotten another one of those nudges from God that said, if you drink on that business trip, you're not coming back. And so, you know, before this all had happened, I was like, I'll just cool it, you know, and I don't know what that means. Maybe I'll get a DUI. And I had a DUI fund. So my brother gave me that idea. And so I had that, you know, I had a little stash. So, okay, so maybe I'll get to, but what happens if I get that in Amsterdam? I don't know. I'll just cool it in Amsterdam. I don't like beer anyway. And I'm not going to smoke pot. So I'm good. And so, you know, I'm kind of rationalizing and justifying, but I haven't gotten word from God that I wasn't going to be okay. And I'm just blowing that off. So so now I'm sitting there thinking, while I'm sitting at the beach house, thinking it's like, oh, this might have something to do with it. So I start to read Bill's story, and I wanted to kind of go through that. I told you all that I read Bill's story, and there were 44 yeps, and I identified with an old drunk Navy guy, and there were 44 of those. So I kind of wanted to read Bill's story and go through those 44 yeps, now that I've kind of caught you up with my life, and just tell you what those 44 yeps were and how they related to a 50-year-old woman that was a drunk. And it was remarkable, and I hope you can relate as well. So here on page 1, and I'm hungover, gone to one AA meeting, have realized I have an allergy, right? And I'm in a house full of booze. And I'm trying to relate to a Navy guy. So war fever ran high in New England, blah, 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 blah. I was part of Life at Last, so I'm thinking about him, me in Clearwater, thinking about, yes, okay, yep, I'm part of Life at Last. I've done that, yep, I realized that. I was in the midst of excitement, yep, I was part of that. So there's the second, yep, I'm not in through the first paragraph. You know, somebody I don't relate with at all, right? I'd forgotten the strong warnings. My uncle had yelled at me about drinking, so yep, not first 3 yeps, I'm not through the first paragraph yet. Got nothing in common with this guy. I was lonely and turned again to alcohol, and I did when I was in Clearwater and when I was in Seattle, when I was away from home. I would drink, I would turn to booze. Not that I was alone, but booze became my friend and my entertainment. So I'm at the end of the first paragraph, and we've got 6 yeps. So now this has got my attention. So here I fancied myself a leader. Well, of course I did, and my talent for leadership. Well, of course, and then I'm going back thinking in brownies. I got all sorts of leadership awards. And it started early. And I would prove to the world that I was important. And I'm 23 and I'm starting a company. Of course I'm important. We were going to take it public. Of course we're important. We're big stuff here. I had a board of directors. Come on. And so at the finals, I was too drunk. I failed the SAT because I was hungover. Did I relate here or what? So men of genius conceive their best projects when drunk. How many times did I go to the bar and come up with these fabulous ideas on how to beat the competition, how to get one over on somebody? Of course, I did that all the time. Now I'm on the second page here, folks. Somebody I don't relate to. And I had arrived, and I felt this way when I had this company. I felt this way when I got my new job in Orlando. I felt this way when I got my job at IBM. I felt this way when I got my job in Seattle, when I had gotten my promotion. So I kept this feeling I had arrived. No humility at all. Just I had arrived. Big pants Laura. Drink was taking an important and exhilarating part in my life. I would make the most boring thing exciting because just add a little booze. Glug, 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 glug. Oh, we're having a good time. So my drinking assumed more serious proportions. And, I would drink longer and more often, and it was starting to be bigger deals. Liquor caught up with me. Golf permitting. Hello, expense account and golf. I got to be a pretty good golfer on an expense account. You can drink all day long, and you can get 2 rounds of golf in with 2 different sets of customers, and you're going to have a pretty good team. So here I am, page 4, and I really identify with this whole thing. I mean, it's crazy. So drinking caught up with me again, and again because I've got another customer drunk story, right? And it's like, it's kind of embarrassing, but hey, we can just pay for the bend the ballpark. It's not that big of a deal. Come on. And you pitch in $500, I'll wiser, nobody has to be the wiser. Okay. So I thought I could still control the situation, but things got worse. This had to be stopped. There were sweet promises to myself. I never made them to anybody else because nobody said anything to me about it because I hid it. You know, it was always fun and games. I hid it. I would make sweet promises to myself, not again. I'll be home on time. I'll do this. I'll get dinner made. And then again, I'd come home drunk and late, no dinner, no laundry, no homework, no letters to the client, all of these things over and over and over again. Where had been my high resolve? Renewing my resolve, I would try again. In no time, I would find myself beating the bar. And I told you all last week, I actually beat the bar and told my friends to shut up so that we could drink. I mean, really. Remorse, horror, and hopelessness. There was a terrible sense of impending calamity. Here I was, getting to go on this 6-week trip, impending calamity. Here I was at 50, being told I'm going to die. I'm going to drink myself to death. That's a family history of dying, of drinking yourself to death. I knew that was coming for me. Impending calamity. I'm on page 6. So I was amazingly weakened when it came to liquor, but I was strong in other areas of my life. I had high hopes, but I drank once more. I had loneliness and despair. I had met my match. I was overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. I was defeated. And then my musing was interrupted by the telephone. I called my brother. And it was the cheery voice of an old friend. It was my brother. I wondered how he had escaped. And I remember my brother, when he was first sober, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, he had come into Orlando, and we were at a Mexican restaurant, and he ordered water, and we were all had a big pitcher of margaritas, and I kept saying, "Oh, Charlie, one won't matter. And it's just like Bill here with Evan, and he's saying, "Oh, I was recapturing the spirit of the other days, and I was just encouraging him so much. I wanted to drink with him so badly." And in hindsight, looking at how selfish that was, you know, and I'm so grateful that he had the resolve that he had. But then, you know, Charlie said, no, I'm going to do this. And over the years, Charlie never did any ranting, and he never did any preaching. He was just a sober, steady Eddie. Never said to any of us that we're alcoholics, you know. My sister especially, she was really a bad alcoholic, and she did end up getting sober before she died. But, you know, he never said, "Hey, let me take you to Hazeltown," or anything. He just was steady Eddie, you know. And but he would just pass his experience in his life. He would just live the life. And I told you that, you know, a year before I picked up my chip, he gave me a 12 and 12, and I had no idea, you know, what that would mean to me. But it's one of the most valuable things I have in my sobriety pack today. But you know, that night, you know, he just was quiet when I called him. He was just quiet and just listened and told me simple things. I'm going to just get you to a meeting in New Smyrna. I'm going to tell you how to get there. And he made, you know, he just said, you know, don't, again, he was just simple, no ranting, nothing. He just said, just go and take what you need and leave the rest. Simple. And then so I came home from that, and here I am reading Bill's story, right? And I have this niggling thing about I have to do something with this higher power, right? And this God thing. And because I know I need a moral philosophy from reading. And so here I am on page 12, reading Bill's story, reading all of this. And I say, my friend suggested what seemed a novel idea. Now I'm reading this. Why don't you choose your own conception of God? And I'm like, what? I can do that? Wow. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, I don't have to have church. I don't have to have religion. I don't have to have any of that. It can just be that me and God thing again. I can just wipe away all of that other stuff. Wow. That statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered for many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me making my beginning. I saw that growth would start from that point. Upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. And so I prayed my simple little second step prayer. I didn't know there was a second step prayer, but I just prayed my own little prayer. God, have me if you will. And that sunshine just came right back. You know, and I'm at the beach. Where's sunshine? It's on the ocean, you know, and the warmth of the sun is there. And that right there is where I came to believe. Not in a power, but that a power could restore me to sanity. And that simple word choice, I didn't have to define what it was. I just knew that it could. And then the fact that it's not a would, but is a could restore me to sanity meant that I had some work still to do. I needed to get some things right in my life. And I didn't know what sanity meant. You know, I didn't know I was insane. What does that look like? I didn't know. And so I know now that I had some step work to do. I had some house cleaning to do. I had some decisions to make. I had to turn my will over, and we'll talk about that in some later stories. But I just wanted to share that story with you and how I came to believe, because it's right here in the story of a Navy guy that I have nothing in common with, you know? So I hope that that is relatable to you all. So I read this story. I get to the 9 o'clock meeting the next day, and I clearly have had some sort of a transformation, you know? And I didn't drink in a house full of booze. And I go to that 9 o'clock meeting, and the ladies are just waiting. You know, they literally are standing on the road waiting for me to see if I'm coming, right? And in New Smyrna Beach, they don't give you a white chip the first day you're there. They wait until you, I guess, to save money, because a lot of people probably come here in New Smyrna Beach looking for chips. So at 24 hours, they give you a chip. And so I had, I got it's a silver chip, and so I keep that at the beach house, and I have that, and they gave me their, you know, I just listened again, you know, I was just too emotional to say anything, and I was just so grateful to have made it to my second meeting and to have 24 hours sober. It was just such a relief and a gift. And, you know, we were outside and we're by the river and in a little pavilion. And it's still one of my very favorite meetings to go to. My brother and I go whenever he's in town. I'll drive down from Jacksonville and we'll go to that meeting together. So I got some numbers. Those ladies gave me numbers. They knew people in Jacksonville, so they gave me numbers for people in Jacksonville. And so as I'm driving back home, I called those ladies, and they gave me a number of a meeting at 6:30 in Jacksonville that night. So I went to that meeting. And this is Alcoholics Anonymous, right? So I walk into that meeting. I'm supposed to look for a girl named Lisa. And I see my daughter's hairdresser there. And so I run like a scalded dog, because I'm not supposed to know anybody, right? You know? And so I run out of there. So he comes chasing after me, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "It's Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not supposed to know anybody." And you know, so he grabs me by the collar and he goes, "Get in here. Who are you looking for?" Sits down, introduces her, and so he ended up taking me to the next meeting in the morning at 7 o'clock at St. Nick's, and that would end up being my home group. And then I met a woman there that was to be my sponsor until the day she died, and I got to speak at her funeral. But Claire, And she took me that day to an 8 o'clock meeting, and then she took me to a 10 o'clock meeting, and then she took me to a noon meeting. So here I am, 48 hours sober, 6 meetings. And I needed that, because I was going on this long business trip. And so I needed to get indoctrinated as much as I could, and I had lots of questions. And I was so looking back in hindsight, looking at how God had arranged all of those people and all of those things to be there to help me get sober, stay sober, be ready to go to Las Vegas and Amsterdam on a 6-week trip, with an expense account and stay sober. I'm so grateful for that. Let me see. I have 3 pages of notes, and I'm not even on the first page. So let me see what y'all are missing. Here we go. Okay, so in the big book, one of the things my sponsor had me do early, just to prove that we're not doing this alone, she had me go through the big book, the first 164 pages, and circle all the weeds. And I don't know if you all have ever done that or have done that, but there's over 500 weeds. And if you all have done that, come up and tell me how many weeds there actually are, and we can compare numbers. But it's not an alone program. If you're doing this alone, you're doing it wrong. And you need to find somebody and do it with, because we isolate as alcoholics. And that's our tendency, is to try and do this alone. And if we're doing it alone, we're not learning from other people, and we're not having their experience, strength, and hope, and learning how they did it. And if you just look at Bill's story and how much I learned in those 8 pages, and how transformational that hour was for me learning from him, it transformed my life. Just learning from one old drunk Navy guy. And so if I can encourage you to do that, just circle the weeds, just so you get a sense that you're not alone. And especially you new people, you're not alone. Find somebody, find a group, get involved. It's really, really important. Then another thing too is I have something here. This was another thing that was very important to me. Somewhere I have it. Our bodies are different. That we're alcoholics. We really do process alcohol differently. And I have a chart here somewhere. I can show it to you. Oh, here it is. That I got somewhere, and that our body and you can come up and take a picture of it later, but we process alcohol very differently. And it's very interesting. Here's the way a normal person processes alcohol. This is how complicated we are. I mean, we can complicate something. Normal people, it's a stick, right? We're really, really complicated. So I'll show you guys on this. So, hey, Charlie, my brother's here. So that's that. And I learned, the concept, of course, I learned in the doctor's opinion, but to see this outlined and drawn about, how we process the different enzymes and ethers and all of that, it's really it's amazing to show. And it's a good learning tool for a newbie too, just to kind of get, we really do process things differently. Let's see. Oh, this was another one too. We're relieved of the alcohol obsessions, and our lives are transformed, and they came to believe in a higher power. Most of them talk about God. But, those of us that some people, and I had a few sponsees that really struggle. They're on the struggle bus with the guy in the sky. And so Google AA and find something that matches what your theology is. There are a million types of meetings. So if you're on the struggle bus in that department, find a meeting that matches what your theology is, and you can stay sober. They have AA for everything. I mean, they have Sewing Anonymous. They have, every kind of anonymous that you can think of. But don't feel left out in an AA meeting because you don't click here. you can get sober and find your right tribe. So I don't want you to feel that you don't belong in an AA meeting, just because we might say words that are different. I just want you to think of that. This was another thing that I found in the coming to believe and restoring myself to sanity. And this will be the last thing, and then I'll turn it back over to the meeting makers, meeting hosts. On Big Book, page 14, simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant the destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. In Bill's story, I related. I remember early on, when I was at St. Nick's, some of the old timers were talking about things, where they had started turning things over. And they started talking about their driving. And here I am, a newcomer, and I'm thinking, you turn over your driving to God, really? And they're like, oh yeah, we used to zoom in and out of traffic, and now we let people merge. And so, and they literally talked for 30 minutes in this meeting. You might have even been there. I mean, they talked about it a couple of times, and I just thought it was just crazy. And then I started to think, it started to niggle, it's like, you really are, instead of your self will run riot, you're driving down the road, I'm gonna get you. And then instead of, oh, I'll let you merge. There you go, mister. Have a good day. Have a good day. Yes, you can get in. Yes, you can get in. Which is more sane? I'll let the guy merge. I'll let the guy merge. And so I was like, that really makes a lot of sense. And it was the little things. It's the little tiny ego crushing. Tiny little things. And I was about 70% on putting the cart away. There's another way I can crush my ego. Let's make it 100% on the cards. So it's those little tiny things I can be deaf to myself, crush the ego, and my character returns because I'm starting to do esteemable things. I don't have to have that, that wasn't good. That doesn't have to end up on my 10th step at night. I can start doing esteemable things and having those little things not be in my head, making me feel like I have remorse and I have regret. And that's how sanity returns, is I start doing those tiny little things, one thing at a time.